Hi good people, welcome back to part 26 of the Frogger series, and in this video we'll be creating some Niagara particle effects to add to the visuals of this prototype. Let's not waste any time and just jump right into it. Alright, so I think starting off, we're going to create some smoke effects so we can add to the vehicles. We'll maybe do some smoke exhaust. So let's go ahead and create a new folder. We can just call this our SFX folder for special effects. And then for smoke, I'm going to use a smoke texture I got from the web. You can also make any smoke texture you want using your photo editing software of choice. I did go over that in an earlier video related to the smoke grenade tutorial. So I won't really cover that too much here. I'm just going to use one from the web. Now we'll want to create a material off that, so I can select material. We'll call it m_smoke. Double click that. And then it's just going to be 2 multiply nodes, so we can hold M, click into the graph twice to get 2 multiply nodes. We'll want to select the texture output node here, and we're going to set it from opaque to be translucent. We'll want the shading model to be unlit, and we'll want to check the box for dual-sided or two-sided. And then the first thing we're going to come into is called a particle color. We will pass the RGB into the top multiply node, and we'll pass the alpha into the bottom multiply node. And then we, of course, multiplying this against our smoke texture. The RGB will go at the top, the alpha will go on the bottom, and then you'll plug the RGB into the emissive color and the alpha into the opacity. And now if we switch to the square, you can see we have the beginnings of our smoke texture, our smoke material, I should say. So we'll go ahead and save that because that's actually pretty much good here. We can now create a Niagara effect off that. So if you right click, select Niagara system. We can use a few different templates to make this work. I think for this one, I'm going to use a fountain for the template. So I'll select that and I'll call this ns_car exhaust. And then we can double click to open that up. And then right off the bat, I don't need gravity, so I'm going to delete that one. And then for the sprite renderer, I don't want to use the default sprite. I want to use the smoke. So m_smoke, so we can flip that. And then for the spawn rate, I want to use something really low, so maybe like 50. And then for the initialized particle, the lifetime I think is too long, because you got to think about it, the car is going to be traveling along the road and it's going to be leaving these particle effects. So we don't want them to linger in the air too long, otherwise you'll create a simple line, because some of the cars move fairly quickly. So we can maybe do like 0.3 to maybe 0.5 for the lifetime. And then the size, I'll do maybe 2050. And that looks already a little bit better. If I go to the shape, I can increase the shape a bit so it kind of spreads out. And then for the velocity, I'll use something much smaller, like 50-100. And then for the cone angle, I'll try bumping that to 90. And then we're kind of left with this, which is perfect. Now, it doesn't look great right now. We got to remember the car is going to be moving fairly quickly, so it's going to be leaving this behind. So let's go ahead and actually save this. And I'm going to go to my blueprints. I have a couple different cars to choose from. I think it'd be fun to only do it on maybe a few of them. So maybe I'll start it with the sedan. Maybe I'll do it on the truck. What you want to do is you want to select the body of the vehicle you want to add it to. And then go to your SFX folder and select the Niagara system. And then when you click the add button, it'll reference that Niagara system and it'll put it as a child. So it'll follow it along, which is good because we animate the car a little bit. So it'll probably be imperceptible, but you know, might as well just cover and make sure it's good. Now this one is it's propelling along the Z-axis, so we can rotate it by pressing E. And we'll just rotate it 90 degrees. That way it's kind of pushing out along how the car is moving. And then we just simply want to line it up, and I'm just going to put it somewhere inside the exhaust there. I think that will look pretty good. So let's see if we compile, save. Doesn't look great in the viewport, but you can see what I was talking about, how it kind of creates that trail, and that's exactly the effect I'm looking for. So I'll just go ahead and jump in the water real quick. Actually, I can just press apostrophe tab, and we can come over and we can kind of see the effect. And I think it looks pretty good. So I think if we put it on every single car, it might be a bit too much. So maybe I'll just do it on the sedan, but you could throw it under the like the truck, would probably make a lot of sense too. You could also code it where it's random. Like some vehicles will emit exhaust and some won't. You can do it that way. But I think for just demonstration, we'll just go with that simple setup for now. But yeah, I think that looks pretty good. So let's go ahead and work on our next smoke effect, which will be for our player. We can use the same texture. We'll just create a different Niagara system. This one, I think we can probably do maybe an omnidirectional burst right here. I think that will be fine. And we can call this our ns_jump. And if we double click to open this one up, I think for gravity, I don't want to bring it down. I actually want to have it float up because it's like it's kicking dust. So when the player jumps, it kicks a little bit of smoke, you know, kind of like from the ground. And then we'll of course go to the sprite renderer, use our smoke material. We'll go into the emitter state. Actually, the spawn burst is what we're looking for. Spawn count 100, I think is too much. Let's go real low, like maybe 15. And then for the particle size, let's bump it up, maybe 1030. And then the lifetime, I don't think you want it around too much because the player is going to be moving a lot, so you don't want the dust to linger. So maybe something real small, like 0.25, 0.5 for the min and max. Just a quick little poof. And I think that'll be good. Now we can also use the shape to go from a sphere to maybe a torus. That way it kind of like, as the player kicks out, it kind of kicks the smoke kind of in a circular fashion out and around. And I think the defaults actually look pretty okay for that one. So that looks pretty good. Let's actually throw it on the player. There's a few different ways you could do it. You could do it from the player blueprint. Like when you do the jump, you can play the Niagara effect, just set it like a new activation. Another way to do it though is we can come into our art folder, and under Frogger we had our jump animation. You can open that up, and we will pause the animation. So maybe like right around here, you have these notify tracks. You can actually just right click and add a notify track. And one of the defaults is actually, like, you can make custom ones if you want, but they have a default ones for the Niagara particle effect. So you can do that and just select your Niagara system. And when it kind of just does it automatically, where it'll play it based on the animation. And then you'll have to, you know, like drag and move it around so it plays exactly where you want it to. But we can give that a quick test to see how it looks. And then you can see our player is kicking a little bit of dust. So we'll go ahead and score real quick. And then I can move around. I think that looks pretty good. Now we'll want to work on some maybe death Niagara effects for when the player gets hit by the car and when the player drowns in the water. Let's do the water one first. So we'll go back into our SFX folder. We're going to want a new material. So right click, select material. Call this m_ebase for emission base. I'm going to double click, and I'm going to set the blend mode to be translucent, shading model to be unlit, and I'll do two-sided as well for this. I'm going to press 3, click into the graph to get a constant 3, right click on it and convert it to a parameter that we can call color. I can then hold M, click in the graph to get a multiply node. I will pull this in, and I'm going to hold S, click in the graph to get a scalar that we can maybe name our strength. And we can hook this up like so into the emissive color. Then we can save, and this is actually done. Now what you can do is right click on that M_E base and create a material instance. We'll call it mi_blue. And this is going to be for my water effect. And then in the parameters here, you can check the box for strength and color, and you can actually set those. So we'll do that, and maybe do 100 to make it nice and bright. And then we'll save, and now we have our material, so now we can work on the Niagara system. So we'll right click, select Niagara system, and then for this one, we'll start with a template just to kind of make this video as short as possible. I don't want to do another, I think simple explosion, we can make that work. Let's do ns_water def. I probably don't need, is it the simple sprite burst? Yeah, I don't think I need this one, so we can delete that. For the omnidirectional burst, I think that one's probably okay. I just need to change to use our mi blue particle effect. And then for the upward mesh, I actually want to select the mesh renderer and hit the trash can to delete it, because I want to use a simple sprite renderer. And we'll do our mi_blue. And then you can see the sprite size is a little big. Let's go into initialize particle. Sprite size. So right now it's doing mesh. We'll just do unset for mesh because we're not using a mesh. We are using a sprite. So the size, I'm going to do random. And I actually think 5 and 10 is probably okay. Now for the velocity, I'm actually okay with the velocity, I think. Let's see what we can do here. Let's add a curl noise. So we'll do a curl noise effect. We'll bump up the strength to something crazy. Maybe like 1,000. Somewhere around there. And then for solid forces is good. For the scale mesh, I think I'm just going to do a simple start big, go small. Kind of like that. And I think that looks all right. The camera moves off the water so quickly, so we don't need something too crazy, just something kind of simple. And then there is a few ways we can, I guess, kind of drive the logic for this one. I think for this one, let's open up the player blueprint. So BP_player. And then in the event graph, we just need to find an empty spot. We'll add a custom event called water def. And then when this kicks off, we will spawn system at a location. The system we want to do is our water def. And then after we call water def, we can call our simple def state. And then we need to just, when we spawn that system, we need to give it a location. So we can just grab our capsule component, get the world location from that under transformation, pass that in there, and that creates the event that will spawn the system. We just need to call it from somewhere. Now, if you'll remember, for the water def stuff, we're using a trigger box in the water. So when the player overlaps this trigger box, if I could select it, there it is. If they overlap this trigger box here, it'll call that def state. And we're doing that in the level blueprint. So we can come here, open the level blueprint, and this is the trigger box that it's overlapping, and it's just simply calling the player def. So we can delete that, and we can instead call the player's water death that we just made. So if we compile, save, we can then play. This is perfect because I'm actually still over the water. So I can simply jump over here, and then it triggers the water death. You see a little animation, and then I'm spawning over here, and then I'm good to go. And that should only trigger on the water. We still need one for the vehicles though, so we can do that now. And that's kind of just more of the same. So we'll go into our SFX folder. We can right click on our eBase. We'll create a material instance. I'm just going to do a simple green. And then I'll check the color and the strength. I'll do like a dark green at 100 to make it nice and bright. Save that. And then we will create a new Niagara system. I'm just going to use a simple omnidirectional burst. Call this ns_car death. And then I just select the sprite render, tell it to use that green color that we just made, maybe add in a curl noise, and then just bump it. And then there's your simple death, right? So we can save that. We'll go back into the player blueprint. We'll do another custom event called car death. And then we can duplicate our nodes down here because it's the same logic. It's just instead of the water death, we're calling the car death. Now this creates the event to fire, but we still need to define the logic to actually fire it. The way we're doing that is actually in the, you'd think it'd be one of the cars, but the way we set up this project is these three cars are actually children of this BP moving objects parent. So we want to open the parent because inside the event graph for there, we have an overlap event that'll cast to the player, check if they're not already dead, and if they're not, we call their death state. So because we're calling death in the car death, we can delete that over here because we don't need it. Instead, we want to call car death. So if we do that, we can then start off here, and I will have to flip over because I'm still over here. So we'll do a quick score. All right, and if I get hit by the car, you see it plays that little Niagara effect. So I'm down to 2 lives. I got my smoke particle effect going over here. We got our car exhaust, and there is our death state working great. So all right, everyone, I think we will cut it here, but in the next and final video of the Frogger series, we'll create some audio effects to round out this project. And as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and we'll see you on the next one.